So we're going to move into the Q&A. Mike has been collecting questions during your presentations. We have a few of them. So are we just going to go in order from the way they were asked?
Yes. So I'm just going to walk through the questions again as they were asked. And the first question is from Diane, and this one's to Laz. She says, with the acceptance of new fields like energy psychology, do you feel that therapists will emerge that understand energy healing and will be able to Kundalini awakening?
So hopefully, Diane, you're still with us. I've been thinking about an answer for the last few hours, and I'm sorry to say I don't have a good one. I wonder if I could open it up to the rest of the panel in a minute. But one thing that Bonnie said to me earlier, or said to all of us, was that it would really help if medical professionals went through a Kundalini awakening themselves. I think that would really give them some insight into the process. And then perhaps with a larger number of individuals experiencing Kundalini, maybe there's a tipping point. Maybe there is a certain measure where the medical professionals will start taking note of how many cases they're seeing, and then they will actually look at their own figures and try something different.
Anybody else have comments there? That's great.
Mm-hmm. I can say something. There have been people that have put an effort into educating professionals. There was a movement over 30 years ago to get a diagnostic category in the DSM that defined spiritual awakening and particularly energetic experiences. It got watered down greatly and was distorted in it didn't get to the full interpretation of what people intended at the time. It came more like a spiritual crisis that other people could relate to that wasn't related to the Kundalini. But there have been efforts, and there are therapists who are involved in this field. So I'm hopeful. I think the term and the whole experience has become much more commonly understood. Maybe not totally understood, but at least the word is recognized more and more in our culture. And more people are going into meditation and into yoga. So I'm hopeful that there's going to be more of a breakthrough in the next 5 or 10, maybe 15 years, where more and more there's enough people in the profession that at least this experience is not discounted or pathologized.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I would just say we're getting a little bit of background noise. So if you're one of the presenters, if you can put yourself on mute and then unmute when you're ready to speak.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated. Yep, there we go. Sounds much better. Next question. This one's for Laz as well. So Laz, in your interactions with Carl, was there ever an aha moment that he described where the experiences began making sense? Was it a particular experience or something that he read or anything along the way?
So I think it was largely experience. It was the old human condition, and having something happen to you 3 times, I think, was ultimately enough opportunity for him to see initially what happened, and then a second time it was a case of, oh, this is familiar, and then the third time it was a case of, right, I know what this is now. I've got some understanding of what's going on. So I think it was just a case of experience and getting over that initial shock, and then going through the understanding, and then getting some control over the situation towards the end.
Great, thank you. This next question is for Corrine. So Corrine, many of us in the workplace today are dealing with, difficult people, difficult circumstances, and some of us are going through the Kundalini process along the way, which makes things even more difficult. In terms of, you mentioned the workplace, in terms of cultivating a positive, healthy work environment for ourselves while we're going through the Kundalini process, what are some of the most important things that you can advise people on?
That's a really great question. First of all, it's to cultivate a sense of compassion, because everybody is at a different place in their evolution. and to really find ways to connect with people, human to human, to put that, and heart to heart, to put that before anything else, really can help shift entire relationships and entire dynamics. So for example, especially if you're working with people who are very challenging to work with, especially people who are, let's say, combative, then how do you deal with that? It's a matter of, first of all, you have to use your own tools of forgiveness. And then you'll find that by you behaving in a certain way, it actually inspires people to behave in a different way. That's one small tool. Another one might be to find a way to have people connect together in a work environment, through a sports activity, through some type of social interaction that's not in the workplace. If you have any control over that at all, to get people out of the work environment, to inspire connection, because really what we're trying to do, even when we feel very spiritually connected, what we're ultimately seeking is that human connection. And it's really, that's what it's all about, is the human connection. So it's to transcend the idea of, well, that person's not spiritual. They may not have any spiritual ideals. What really matters ultimately is kindness and compassion. So instilling those values just by your own behavior can be really helpful.
Thank you, Corinne.
That's really important.
In a similar follow-up question, and this is actually for Laura. This was from Lynn on YouTube. She asked where she can get more information, like illustrations, showing the effects of some of these negative energy interactions, and maybe ways that we can learn to deal with them in a more healthy way.
Yeah. Hi, Lynn. So some of the pictures that I showed, and I think that were in the presentation, and I think are some of the best, are by Barbara Brennan. And actually the illustrator is Thomas Schneider. He's a great guy. I met him in New York. And so Barbara has illustrations in Hands of Light, her first book, Light Emerging, her second book, and Core Light. And she goes into that in detail.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
This next question is for Bonnie. And this is one from Diane. She mentions, with all the turmoil in today's modern world and all the negativity in the news, what are the most effective ways within ourselves to seek stillness, truth, and love?
It's a good one.
Good question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I feel like taking the time for meditation, for stillness, taking time to go deeply within yourself is really essential in this world today. It's like finding the harmony has to be found inside of you. And so when you're stirred up by the world events or the news or whatever is going on, it's like the more you've developed a practice of going within, going into stillness, the more you can, and kind of at will, separate yourself temporarily from all that input and find the core of peace within you. So, and you can also work with the breath to do that, particularly breathing down into the belly and grounding yourself in the physical center of your body, just below the navel, and what the dancers would call the hara, and just kind of breathing so that your belly expands as you inhale and it goes in as you exhale, and you're just kind of grounding yourself right there in your center. That's one way to use your physicality to actually find the still point and eventually become fluid enough to kind of move in and out of the challenges in your life or in the world.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. Another question for you, Bonnie, is for those going through a Kundalini awakening, and we encounter many in our work in the Emerging Sciences Foundation, what would you say, based on your experience, is the most important piece of advice for those going through a Kundalini awakening in terms of managing the energy?
Well, there's several things, and it depends a little bit on the particular issues that are arising. But I would say if you can let go of fear, that's very important. That fear it amplifies everything, makes it much, much worse. And I also feel that having a context for the experience, helping somebody understand how it relates to their evolution spiritually, that it's not just a random event, that it's something internally that is inviting them into a different way of seeing things, a different way of being. So once people really understand the context of it, and they learn to get into a more positive or creative relationship with it, and they're willing to face the things that arise in the service of becoming more conscious, then things settle down usually quite a bit. I also feel that if somebody's having great difficulties, very often there's trauma in their history. And if they've never done any therapy or worked with the traumatic events, sometimes they really need to backtrack a little bit and really deal with the human aspect of these traumatic, the impact that these traumatic experiences had on them. And there are many creative therapies today with which you can do that. Just one I'll mention is Richard Miller's program, I-Yoga, which is Richard is both a yogi and a psychologist, and has developed a system that's very healing of trauma, and that's very spiritually based. And there's many others. So keep looking, seek this out, and get the support you need.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.
Yes.
Yeah, your work is very much appreciated by those who are going through this process. So it was great to hear you kind of elaborate more on that today's talk.
Yes. Amazing.
Carl, this question is for you. So in terms of global changes, what kind of global changes might we expect to see as the world begins to awaken to some of these higher truths?
Well, I think it's not something that just automatically will come. If I look at these different waves that are creating our universe and are creating the minds of people, which ultimately is what's behind how people act. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't have a choice about it, but yet they do influence us, these you might say quantum states. And the way I look upon it is that today it's sort of somewhat conflicting states that we may resonate with. And I think times will be more difficult in the next couple of years, and then it will turn upwards again, and people will be more into democracy and global collaboration sometime around 2030 or something like that. But it really it really also comes down very much to the choices we make, especially when it comes to spiritual development, to fully embrace and go into you might say a direction of a unified mind, one that doesn't separate. I mean, the world has been dominating by a duality for about 5,000 years. And then there are new waves that have been the final waves of the whole scheme that the Maya identified, that have been activated quite recently. So I would say there's no certain outcome of what's going on. There is the potential for anyone to choose these waves that are higher, and especially then the ninth wave, which is the one that really transcends the duality that has created so much pain in the past, and really still underlies very much of humanity's way of relating and acting. So it comes down to a choice, especially now when there are conflicting cosmic waves that are dominating our our planet. That's how I would answer that.
I really like that, because it, ultimately you mentioned it really comes down to personal choice. Which wave or which vibrational rate we decide to tune into individually. Ultimately, a lot of us, collectively as individuals, culminates in our direction as a global society. This next question for Gaetan, as the technology develops, as you've seen over the past few decades, what kind of breakthroughs do you anticipate in the future that might revolutionize our understanding of the biofield?
Are you on mute?
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay, good. So I think that it's very exciting where the technology is going, in that we have more and more refined method of measuring the biofield, and especially, the flow of subtle energy like chi energy, and quantum field developments also. And so I do think that we will be able to have an instrument that will probably be able to measure a bit like Star Trek, measuring the tricorder, where you're going to be able to measure the status of the biofield and the chakra function for everyone, and be able to establish also their relationship with their own emotional system. So we're going towards more and more refined measurements of the biofield, to a point where we're going to be able to measure, I think, a level of energy that in esoteric teaching they call that the etheric level, but it's actually a form of subtle energy, and we're supposed to have a body there. We also use, to guide our research, we also use, a model of reality that includes subtle energies and, like different levels of reality, like physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, has actually different world or level of vibrational energy. And we can see, for example, from our measurements with a GDV, that when a healer works on someone, a very powerful healer, the energy seems to disappear. We have no aura around the person. And then you wait a few hours and the aura comes back. And this is true both for the healer and the healee. The energy disappears, and then a few hours it comes back. And then it comes back more organized, more powerful, more symmetric. And so we can see that there's a limitation in our technology in the level of vibration that we can go. And I think we're going to be able to surmount that and go to a higher level of that information, and that also we will have more integrated systems. Now we're measuring from different angles, the AMI, the GDV, and it's going to be exciting, because I think we're going towards a functional and energetic medicine, and the disease model is really has had its utility, but it's going to be fading out. It's not necessary anymore. We're going to characterize everything, but because we're going to have instruments to measure directly the flow of energy in the body, and be able to see the imbalances that cause the problem. And even, like I said, for a stomach ulcer, even the Chinese medicine had 10 different remedies, 10 different causes. And we can see that also with the instruments that we have. Person come with a diagnostic of fibromyalgia. Actually, there are hundreds of different causes of fibromyalgia that we could. So it's not helpful to have a label of fibromyalgia. It's just like the person that you was talking about, that was labeled schizophrenic. It's useless. You have to see what's happening in the person. And we would be able to characterize what happened in a person who has Kundalini awakening, and be able to characterize not only that it's a Kundalini awakening, but what type and what kind of methodology system of healing that would be best for a person. We would be able to see that this person will have a tendency of having high blockage in the energy, will be explosive, versus having a person who has workout with their blockages and the energy will work better. So I think that's where we're going. So.
And that's a interesting point. And there was a follow-up question from Sterling on YouTube. And she asked, she's wondering how SciTech could help people going through a Kundalini awakening to understand their experiences and help their progress.
By measuring their energy field and following them. That's what we did with the lady with breast cancer, but also with other people with Kundalini awakening in progress. So by monitoring what happens, correlating what happens to their life, their emotional life, and their spiritual life with what actually we see with our machines, we're able to understand better where it's going and how blocked the energy is and how the energy is moving. Because what we feel as pain, what we feel is really an energy blockage. And Dr. Matuyama has done a great experience with someone who had great pain in the elbow. And he took a wire and he connected a meridian. He saw that there was a meridian that was blocked there and it was causing energy. Took a wire, just a normal wire, connected to 2 points of the same meridian on both sides of the pain, and the pain dissipated. It's an energy blockage. So most of the pain that we're experiencing are due by lack of energy flow, energy blockage, which are due to our, misalignment with our own nature as human beings, that most of the time we create ourselves by our lifestyle and way of thinking.
And I'm also thinking of, combining the work that SciTech is doing from an imaging standpoint, and also, the work that organizations like the Emerging Sciences Foundation, or even the research that Bonnie Greenwell has done, and kind of correlating, what is apparent through imaging technology, and then also on the experiential side, what is happening there to, maybe help define and chart some new paths forward for people going through Kundalini awakenings. Very, very exciting stuff.
There's so much potential.
Yes. So we're excited to be part of this, and thank you for inviting us, because that's the kind of thing we want to happen. We have some technology here. I remember at Bonnie many, many years with Dr. Matuyama, and we were excited to be part of what's happening there. But I think, that in those days, there were much more resistance than today. I agree with Bonnie that things have changed quite a bit. And I think now it's moving forward. There's too many people who have too many, Kundalini experiences, and too many people who are exposed to yoga, to these words, so that I think, like someone was reaching, I think it was that we would have probably critical mass where we are.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a paradigm shift. So I think it's very exciting time to be part of this kind of research.
It is a very exciting time. Today is also a very auspicious day. I hope everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us and taking time from this very auspicious day to be with us. And we hope that everyone's presentation here added a lot of value to you, to your life, to your understanding. And know that, like Michael said, it's important to know that the core of power is always within ourselves, and how all of our presenters also touched on that power for change, for radical progress is always within ourselves. And thank you so much for being a part of this. We are out. Maybe if just everyone can say bye to our audience, that would be great.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
You guys are amazing.